I'm excited about this morning. One of the things that I've been working through, it's interesting, every morning Helen and I have had the privilege to get up early. Yes, I don't like getting up early, but I do get up early. We make a cup of coffee and we're going through the book of Hebrews together, and it's a lot of fun. I'm cracking open my Greek books and all the other kind of stuff and wiping the dust off, and I'm just enjoying the time that we have together. And I want to just encourage each of you to make that investment. Take a few moments out of your day and just fill your mind with some of the truths that God has, because it is transforming. And some of the things that I want to share this morning come from some of our own personal working through the book of Hebrews and how it has lit up some areas of our life. I don't know about you, but I can have a lot of information tucked up in here, but very little of it seems to translate into what I do. And the more that we encounter God, the more we learn about the presence of God, the more we learn about the relationship we can have with God. It's amazing how some of those not so lit areas start lighting up. And all of a sudden we see things that we've never seen before, or we may have heard about them, but somehow the encounter has changed our perspective. It's changed something of how we view things. And all of a sudden, you'll notice, and I think many of you can testify, how some of those truths change the way you think and how you act. And so that's one of the beauties of the presence of God and His Word. And so there's a few things that I want to pull out of Hebrews chapter 11. And I have those things on our screen for us as we go through it. But I titled my message, Running in Overdrive. You ever felt like you came to a point where you almost have exhausted yourself? It might be maybe at work or something at home, or you're planning something, or things just are running its course, and it almost seems like you're coming to the end of it, and it's just like, I need a little bit more to finish it. How many have been there before? Just a little bit of, if only I could just have just a little. We talk about it as an adrenaline rush. All of a sudden, everything is empty seemingly, and all of a sudden it's like that for a few moments, the tank is full, sometimes over full. And what we thought we couldn't do, all of a sudden, it seems like we can reach it. And then we're really extremely tired after that. I remember in high school running a long-distance race, and we were practicing for the 5,000-meter race, and I was pacing myself, and two guys in my particular group are always beating me at the end. And I didn't understand it. I paced myself well, and I was always ahead, but it was like the last 60 meters. It seemed like something kicked into gear for them, and they reached where I was, and they surpassed me. It was just like, what am I missing? How many have felt like that? What am I missing? Something's not cooking correct up here. Yeah, some of you are taking your time thinking what that all means. I'll let you stew on that one for a little bit. What is it that it's like you just run out of steam too early? And I remember asking my coach, what's missing? I'm pacing myself. I'm setting a pace. I got lots of oxygen in my lungs, and it just seems like that last 60 meters, it just seems like the gas runs out, and somehow they take off. He says, you learn to pace yourself. When you come to that 60 meters, it's an obstacle. Your body says now's enough. But you're going to have to find another gear. You're going to have to find an overdrive. That when your body says no, you tell it yes. And you take that next 60 meters and you run as if it was a 60-meter dash. Your body will scream, everything will hurt, but you will notice a fire is going to be lit under you, and you're going to overpower what your mind says can't be done, and watch yourself finish the race. And I never forgot that, and I remember, I said, I'm going to try that. It was one of those days. That was a 3,000 meter this time, and we gradually got bigger and then dropped it down to get ourselves used to it. So it was a 3,000, and I paced myself. I did it right, and I came to that 60-meter wall where my body said, now is enough. There isn't any more. And I remember subconsciously in my mind saying, no way. Now the jets are going to turn on. And I remember for the first time feeling the exuberance. Is that a word? that all of a sudden there was something that filled into my legs, into my heart, and I began to run. I began to run, and I remember it clear as day. My legs felt like rubber. But yet the strides were coming faster and quicker because I was purposed to see something that I've never seen before. And that time I won that race because of that concept. And sometimes I believe this. We go through things in life. Man, we go through stuff in life. Every one of us has a story of what life has done to us or where our choices have brought us or situations that maybe are under control. And it almost seems like we just reached the point that we have nothing left, that we need an overdrive to bring us back into the race and finish it well. I don't think life is so much about living in overdrive. It is understanding that we can push through our limitations. Faith is a powerful concept. In Hebrews chapter 11, it talks about how powerful faith is. Now, let me define faith for you. Faith is simply an expression of what we believe. So it's what we believe becomes our faith, whether it's positive or negative. Faith is an expression of what we believe. So if I believe that I'm dumb, that I can't accomplish something, and that I can only go so far, and that's it, that's who I am, if I believe that, my faith will express that in whatever I do. But if I believe I'm an overcomer, that my limits can be reached, and I can overcome the obstacles in my life, I believe that becomes a faith that pushes me and carries me through life. So faith is not a religious term, it's not a church term, it's simply an expression of what we believe. I'm looking around this auditorium and I'm seeing people of faith. You are all people of faith. The question is where do we exercise or where do we direct that faith? Because faith is just simply an expression of what we believe. So it's not about finding more faith. It's not about learning about faith. It's better expression is we have to learn to direct our faith because all of us have it. How many times have you spoken ill of yourself when you've done something wrong? And how you believe something that someone has told you when you were a young child and you believe that all along you're never going to amount to anything. That becomes a belief system in your life where that's where your faith rests, and you're scared to step out. You're scared to do anything because you know you've been told all your life that you're going to fail at it, so then you don't. Or sometimes you've learned that an ideal is this and you can't reach it, so then your faith, your belief system acknowledges that I'll never obtain that. I want to talk about faith this morning, not as an expression of running an overdrive, or we're looking for that kick, or we're looking for that jump, or living for that shot, but rather aligning our faith, our belief system with what God speaks over us, because then no matter how long the race is, no matter what's in front of us, we're living based on what we believe in our heart and our life, and it'll carry us through. Faith changes all the time because we grow, we experience, we learn, we develop, all those things. And so I want to look at Hebrews chapter 11 on just dealing with the whole concept of faith and how powerful it is, whether it's negative or positive. And of course, I want to bring the biblical concept to it because I know when we embrace what God speaks over us, that level of faith shapes our destiny. It shapes our thinking. It shapes our progression of understanding things. It shapes everything about us. What we believe always moves us. That's why we're people of faith, because what we believe always influences what we do. Change your belief, you will always change your life. Change what you think and how you relate, and your life will not be the same. Hebrews chapter 11 is known for the faith chapter because it is used over 56 times, the word faith. And each time faith is used, it always gives an expression of what it looks like, because faith is never passive. Faith is always active. It's always active. Because faith influences us to do. Not necessarily to think, although there's a relation to that, but it always influences us to do. And so it's used over 56 times in this one chapter, and it's given an example of how that faith is translated into something that's moved them. And it's amazing when we read. I'm not going to read the whole chapter because it is 40 verses, and we'd be here for quite a long time, especially with my dyslexia. Reading would be very difficult, and you would think, man alive, this guy's horrible. He's just beating up the words. So I just want to take a few words to underline what I want to do. And there's three things that I want to talk about faith. That's important for us to understand. And when we put that faith in the right context, it changes our life. In Hebrews chapter 1, it says this. Now faith, which is our belief system, okay? Anytime you see the word faith, it's just our belief system. It's how we believe. It's an expression of how we believe. So Hebrews chapter 1, 11 verse 1 says, faith shows us the reality of what we hope for. So faith gives us the confidence of what we're hoping for because our belief is aligned up with it. We know it's coming. So it's that confidence of what we hope for. And then it says this, it is the evidence or the proof of things we cannot see. That's how powerful what we believe is. We may not necessarily have it in black and white, but it's so alive in here that we see it as actually happening. We see it as actually true. It's the confidence we have, and it's the proof that we have it regardless if we see it. And then it says in verse 2, through their faith, it's talking about the people that live by faith, and the examples of this whole chapter. He said, through their faith, through their belief, the people of the days of old earned a good reputation. In other words, what he's saying there is, their character was a result of what they believed. They gained a good reputation. Further on, I want to talk about three things about faith. First of all, faith sustains us. Faith sustains us, whether it's positive or negative. Faith provides what we need to push through and keep us moving forward in life, in situations, and circumstances. Let's put it in a more plain language. If we believe something negative about ourselves or our abilities or what people have spoken over us, and that becomes our belief system, that's where our faith is. Faith will sustain you. In other words, you can be looking at the exact opposite and not see it. You can see that people can see there's blessings all over your life and where God's coming through and where circumstances are in your favor, but because your belief system is based on something that's in here, you can look at those things and still not see them. It will sustain that whole lifestyle. It will sustain that thinking pattern. So no matter what you do, unless you change our thinking, faith always sustains us. It keeps us on the course. It keeps us on the same highway. What we believe always moves us. In Hebrews chapter 11, it tells us that faith is this substance, it's the confidence. Let me ask you a question this morning. What are you most confident in about? What are you most confident about? What is a certainty for you? He said, faith is the confidence of things we hope for, and it is the proof or the evidence of things we cannot see. Where's our confidence? What is it that moves us? The question I asked myself when I was going through this was, how do we know what we believe? How do we know what we believe? And that's answered in what moves us. What is it that influences us the most? What is it that influences the direction of our life? That's where faith lies. The greatest area of faith will always steer us in a particular direction. Always. Faith sustains us. The word sustain is an interesting word because if you look at it in a way of an autopilot, okay? Let's look at that as an autopilot. When you get on an airplane and you travel any distance, it is for certain that you know that the pilots are not flying the whole time. They have what they call an autopilot. Soon as they get airborne, they get where they need in the altitude, they switch a button and a computer takes over. And it runs through all kinds of stuff and speeds and air, all that. And the pilots are just watching the controls, and I don't know, maybe they're watching Netflix. I have no idea, but they have an autopilot. It's supposed to sustain them for their trip. It lets them know when there's obstacles. It lets them know when their speed changes. It lets them know when now they have to start taking the controls and start preparing for landing. It tells them all that stuff. It sustains them. That's how powerful faith is. It's like that autopilot. It keeps us on that level. And sometimes we wonder, I've been there many times, I've been wondering, I don't like the outcome of what I'm seeing in my life. It's a faith issue. It's where I'm directing my beliefs. Because what I believe will influence where I go. It'll sustain you. There's a second thing that is important about faith, and it's like this. It lights a fire under us when we've reached our limits. It's almost like adrenaline. It's almost like an overdrive button. But it's not based on emotions. It's based on what we believe about ourselves. It's based on what we believe about the situation around us. And so it lights that fire because it sustains us. Sometimes we lose focus and we lose what we see, and we're getting influenced by what's around us. And because of that, sometimes faith kicks in. It's like, no, that's not true. And it's almost like a fire that lights under us. Or many times in our life when we see things that are ahead of us that are just simply impossible, faith gives us the surge of yes when we think all is lost. It gives us that energy, that surge. It's interesting, in Hebrews chapter 11, it talks about, in verse 13, it says, all these people died still believing in what had been promised. Now that verse by itself would be interesting, but it goes on further. It says not only these people died still believing what God had promised them, it continues and tells us that they did not receive what was promised, but they saw it from a distance and welcomed it. They welcomed it. They saw it from a distance and they welcomed it. It was. They may not have had it in their hands, but their faith was so secure that it didn't matter that they weren't living it at the moment. It was enough to know it was on its way. Talk about sustaining you. Because these people went through an awful lot of things. We go through stuff in life. That's why faith is so important. What we believe is going to keep us going in the midst of the uncertainties of life. It's going to keep us going when the mountain seems to be higher than what our energy capacity is. Faith, we keep putting one foot in the other, not discouraged, not slowing down. But the degree of faith will always reflect in the degree of purpose of us keeping going. All these people died still believing what God had promised, even though they didn't receive it yet. They died believing something that they hadn't experienced. That's how powerful their faith was. It moved them. They made decisions based on it. They made their plans based on it. Everything in their life was based upon what they believed because it shaped and molded their direction. It lights a fire. Our belief becomes stronger than our limits. Our belief becomes stronger than our limits. Too often, I think in my own life, I allow the limits of my life to influence me, and I'm not willing to start or quit halfway through. That's how powerful belief systems are. You know what I call church belief systems? I call it church BS. Some of it is good, some of it isn't good. We have to work on our faith and allow God to shape us and mold us so that we align ourselves with His purpose and plans for us. Because when we align, we experience life at a level we've never experienced before. Because I know this, church, God's thinking over our life is far bigger and far greater than we've ever experienced here on earth. And it's available to us to live here and now. Here and now. So much of often teaching out there is it's for the hereafter. I'm telling you, God's intent for us to live his fulfilled life here and now. We're not waiting for something to happen down the road. We can experience it now. That hope is something that can transform us here and experience it now. I love that aspect. He believes in us so much that he's willing to participate in our very life to reveal and to help us obtain it and live it. There's a promise that God says that I've come to give life and to give life more abundantly. The phrase more abundantly is a Greek word zoe, which is, you can translate that word life, but it means far more than just breath. It means blessing. It means fulfillment. It means joy. It means an overwhelming aspect where life is an experience, not an event. Isn't that awesome? God wants us. That's why he came. That's why faith is so important. That's why what we believe is so important. That's why what we believe about ourselves is so important. That's why we need to understand what God says over us, because when God speaks over us, he always speaks to our potential of what he created us to be. And that's how he views us. That's how he sees us. And that's what he declares over us. That's what he does. That was weak. All these people they died still believing what God had promised them. They did not receive what was promised, but they saw it from a distance and they welcomed it. It was enough to know that it was spoken over them and they lived based upon it. That's how powerful faith is. That's how powerful faith is. There's a third thing that I believe what faith does, and this is an important aspect of it because sometimes we forget that. We see the results of it sometimes, but we forget the magnitude of it. Not only does faith sustain us, it lights a fire underneath our feet, but third, it's contagious. Faith is contagious. It has the ability to rub off on others. It will get others fired up. You see, when you are a person that rises above the circumstances of life and you speak hope and speak life, not what you've heard, rising above those things, you have the ability to influence other people. It's contagious. Try it. Go to work sometime and see how grumpy people are. How long do you last? Hate this job. This sucks. The world is falling. I mean, nothing's out there anymore. This is terrible. And pretty soon you're just sucked right into it, right? Because faith influences. It's not about negativity. It's what you believe. And if you believe in doom and gloom and everything's falling apart and everything's getting flushed down the toilet, I mean, that's how you're going to live your life. I choose not to flush things down the toilet. I want to rise above it, slam the seat down, and start believing the best around me. Oh, you're just a positive thinker. No, I'm channeling my faith in a different direction. I'm not letting what people and news are telling me influence me. I want to let what God speaks over me influence me. Yeah, it's fun. Am I there yet? Oh, no, I have days too where I want to flush everything down the toilet. Absolutely. But I'm glad every time I flush, the water comes back. I can restart again. Right? The trouble is, if the water doesn't come back, then you know you have a problem. A plumbing issue. I'm telling you, there is so much hope out there. There's so much reality. God is speaking life over people, life into situations. We may hear one thing, but I'm careful what I listen to, because what I listen to has the ability to influence me and my faith, and my faith is my belief system, and my belief system will always steer the direction of my life. You know, have you ever seen that cartoon where monkey sees, right? Monkey doesn't hear. And what's the other one? I don't know what the other one is. Oh yeah, speak. Man, sometimes you have to learn to do this. And sometimes you have to learn to do this. And sometimes you have to learn to do this. Because what we really see isn't the truth. It's what people want you to see. See, that's how important faith is. It's just what you believe. Rise up to the top. Nope, I'm not going to be overcome. Nope. I'm going to rise to the top, and I'm going to learn the things I need to learn, and I'm going to conquer the thing that is trying to conquer me. That's faith. I said to you this morning, faith sustains you. Let me tell you something about faith. Faith doesn't happen like this. It's not like McDonald's and get a burger in 35 seconds, burger, fries, and a drink in 35 seconds. It doesn't work that way. Oh, I have been deceived. My faith has been shaken. Isn't it true we live in an instant world? I mean, I'm watching the hockey game and my Oilers are winning. I'm watching the hockey game and there's a commercial about a home builder that's high tech. You say the word, the lights turn on. You can go to your phone, turn the temperature up. I had one of these things in my home, one of these, what do you call them? Not Siri, but Google something or other. Yeah, hey Google, that's what it was. I plugged it, it was awesome. It's like, hey Google, what's the temperature? Oh, the temperature in Estevan is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. What time is it, Google? It is 3 o'clock. You know, it looks impressive, right? It's cool. Instant. I remember when I was the garage door opener. My dad would pull up the driveway and say, son, that was my cue. Walk to the door. Whoop. They would drive in. 30 below, open the door. I remember when I was the TV changer. You want to change the channel, this one sucks. And I didn't hit a button, I turned a dial. Mess with rabbit ears a little bit because it's a little bit fuzzy. There it is. How many watched Hockey Night in Canada growing up? Man, until Saturday night was our night. Chips, pop, and hockey. And turning rabbit ears, and turning rabbit ears, and turning rabbit ears. And it was on black and white. Black and white. That's television. And a tube that was, two people had to carry into your house. It was so big. It was like, that's a furniture piece right there. That's the TV. Now we don't even, now you carry it in your pocket. I can watch my Edmonton Oilers on my phone while I'm in the airplane. That is cool. Everything's instant. At your fingertips. I remember going on the internet when it made this noise. Right? We're going on the World Wide Web. It sounds like you're breaking everything on the... It's like, we're in it, boys. We're in it. I remember when our phones had 2-mile cords because we wanted to walk around and talk. You ever had that? It's like going in the next room and, oh, my sister's around the corner and her door's closed. I wonder who she's talking to. So instant now. I can drive my vehicle and say, hey, Siri, call my wife. And it doesn't say which one. Oh. Calling Helen on speakerphone. It even tells me that. I can even say, hey, Siri, can you read my last text from Dave? The last text from Dave is, are you available for coffee? Would you like to respond? Yes. What would you like to say? No. Everything's instant. We live in such an instant world. And often we want faith to be instant. We just want to declare it, it's done. Sometimes we have to work it through. It's like my mom making dough, buns, mixing all up, and she was doing this, and I thought that was the stupidest thing to do in the world, because now we have machines that do that. Working it in. We got to work it in. Our belief system, we got to work it in. We got to put a little bit more belief in this area and work it in. A little bit more of this in there, work it in. Add a little sugar to make it sweeter, work it in. Right? Once we work it all in, what do we have to do? Let it rise. It's like, oh my goodness, really? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? It's going to rise. You watch. Sure enough, it was in here all of a sudden. 20 minutes later, it's here. It's like, oh, that's a miracle. No, it's just what you put in there is working. What do you put into your life? What do you put into your life? You've been given ingredients. God's given us ingredients. Not one person's faith is better than the next person. No, they're all ingredients. We got to work it in. It's not instant. Not instant. When your wife was pregnant or your girlfriend was pregnant or some significant other was pregnant in your life, it didn't happen like that. If it did, it was an emergency. This isn't normal. And doctors start controlling everything when it's not done the right time. What are you working into your faith? Are you working in doubt? Are you working in fear? Are you working in what people have told you, that you're no good, you'll never achieve anything in life? Are you working that in? Because that's what's going to rise. That's what's going to rise. That's how it's meant. Faith will always rise. So what we put into it, it will rise. I'm glad it doesn't end there. I want to tell you this morning, church, faith sustains us. It lights a fire, and it is contagious. It's contagious. You start speaking life over your own self, and people will all of a sudden see and notice it, and they will speak life over themselves. And together, we become what God wants us to be, because our faith is rising and has the right ingredients. Amen?